Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're looking at a truly fascinating alignment of events from July 8th, 2026. The material we're covering today perfectly illustrates this huge thematic domino effect across global news. We're going to see exactly how a single geopolitical flashpoint instantly cascades into financial markets, the tech sector, and even right down into domestic policy. It's all connected. So let's see how these dominoes are falling.
550. Right off the bat, that is a massive number. It represents the 550-point drop the Dow Jones literally just experienced. And it happened at the exact same moment Brent crude oil surged past $80 a barrel. So you're probably wondering, what on earth triggered this massive economic shockwave?
Section 1. Global flashpoints accelerate. It all started with a severe geopolitical catalyst. President Trump has officially declared the Iran ceasefire over. This follows an incident where 3 commercial ships were attacked by Tehran in the Strait of Hormuz. And now, we're seeing reciprocal actions. U.S. Central Command launched coastal strikes, and Iran retaliated with drones and missiles aimed at American military bases in Bahrain and Kuwait. It was intense enough to set off air raid sirens across both of those countries. And while all that conflict was escalating in the Middle East, major macro geopolitical shifts were solidifying at the NATO-Ankara summit. Allies just pledged a whopping $80 billion in military support for Ukraine. Plus, President Trump informed President Zelensky that Lockheed Martin is actually going to build a plant to produce Patriot missiles directly in Europe. On top of that, the U.S. is considering F-35 sales to Turkey, and following a meeting with the Syrian president, Trump indicated he's inclined to remove Syria from the state sponsors of terrorism list.
It really just brilliantly illustrates the interconnectedness of modern conflict. The ripple effects are spreading into entirely new arenas, almost like a giant puzzle. Amidst all these tensions, China signaled it might restrict AI and tech exports as a retaliatory lever. That opens up a totally new front in global trade pressure. At the exact same time, the multi-day international funeral procession for Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has reached Najaf, Iraq, drawing absolutely massive crowds of mourners to the streets.
Section 2. Markets react to conflict. Let's look at how these geopolitical flashpoints are directly crashing into the global economy. The International Monetary Fund just officially downgraded its global growth forecast for 2026 to exactly 3%. But, and this is a huge but, here is the crucial caveat. This projection relies entirely on the assumption that commerce through the Strait of Hormuz normalizes by March 2027. Given the renewed hostilities and those reciprocal strikes we just talked about, well, that timeline is now in serious doubt, and that is leaving markets seriously on edge.
So what does this actually mean for your wallet? First off, the U.S. Treasury Department revoked its authorization for Iranian oil sales, and that adds major supply pressure. That move basically caused the recent drop in the national average gas price to just stall out entirely at $3.79. Over in the bond market, the 10-year Treasury yield spiked to nearly 4.6%. And at the Federal Reserve, FOMC minutes show officials are really split. They're heavily debating whether they need to hike rates to combat this new war-driven inflation, especially because it's now colliding with the massive infrastructure demands of the whole AI boom.
Which brings us to Section 3, the global AI race. The technology landscape is facing its own massive upheaval right now amid these international trade threats.
We are witnessing a rapid, structural shift in tech dominance. China's Z just released its GLM-5.2 open-weight model, and it's boasting 80 times customer growth in just a single week. 80 times! It's operating at a fifth of the cost of Western models and has already captured up to 46% of U.S. enterprise volume. Now, contrast that explosive growth with Google's Gemini 3.5 Pro. It is really struggling to get out of its enterprise preview. Right now, it's 3 weeks past its target launch date with absolutely no confirmed release, and they're citing unexpected issues with token efficiency and long task reasoning.
But, despite those hurdles, there is some serious domestic tech resilience to highlight here. Apple just signed a massive $30 billion plus deal with Broadcom. This secures US-made wireless components for their devices all the way through 2031, which really insulates them from some of those global trade pressures we mentioned. And in the autonomous space, Alphabet's Waymo is vastly expanding its robotaxi footprint. They're bringing fully driverless rides to San Diego, Las Vegas, Tampa, and Denver. A real game changer for sure.
Moving on to Section 4, Domestic Extremes and Deadlines. Let's pivot to the realities and the ticking clocks hitting the U.S. this week. We are tracking 3 major domestic issues right now. First, following that massive, climate-driven July 4th heat wave, a second dangerous heat dome is already forming over the western and central U.S. Second, if you're in New York City, residents are being strictly warned to avoid the 42nd Street block near Grand Central. Why? Because the 37-story former Pfizer headquarters, which is currently under conversion, is literally dropping bricks. It remains completely structurally unstable. And finally, the clock is ticking loudly on the 21st Century Road to Housing Act. It expires this Friday without presidential action, and so far President Trump has remained totally silent on whether he's going to sign it.
Section 5. Sports and Entertainment Records. As we near the end of our explainer today, let's look at culture and entertainment. Legacy media consolidation is rapidly accelerating globally. That's perfectly highlighted by Comcast's Sky unit stepping in to buy ITV's media and entertainment branch for $2.1 billion. But honestly, the truly staggering numbers today are coming from the world of sports.
30 million. That is the record-breaking number of viewers who tuned in to watch the U.S. men's national team face a pretty painful 4-1 elimination against Belgium. The broadcast peaked at nearly 37 million viewers. That officially makes it the largest audience ever for a soccer broadcast in United States history. Just an incredible turnout.
Now, even with the U.S. knocked out, the tournament moves on to a highly anticipated quarterfinal round. We've got France versus Morocco on Thursday, Spain taking on Belgium on Friday, and on Saturday, Norway plays England while Argentina faces Switzerland. And wow, we absolutely have to mention how Argentina got there. Lionel Messi orchestrated an absolutely stunning comeback against Egypt. He scored his tournament-leading 8th goal to rally from a 2-0 deficit right in the final minutes. No way you could script a better finish.
So, taking a step back, from military strikes in the Middle East to massive AI tech shifts, right down to a 550-point drop in the Dow, today's news truly represents a global domino effect. I want to leave you with a provocative thought to ponder today. With inflation threats renewed and global trade lines fracturing, how will the global economy absorb the shocks of a new era of conflict? Keep that question in mind as you watch the markets this week. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep learning.